for staying tuned. It's 8:30 right here, and we're currently looking at the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission's net billing regulations. And what it provides is to establish a standard framework for the interconnection of renewable energy installations at customer premises to an electricity distribution network, facilitate the export of surplus power from the consumer's premises to the grid under a credit-based billing system, and provide a clear compensation mechanism for the utilization of excess power produced by a customer from a renewable energy facility installed at its premises. All of these provisions are contained, and we're trying to make sense of this, what it means for you. Would it result in stable power supply? Would it be affordable? Would we see a disbandment of the band A, B, C, D, E? What exactly would it mean for those who are prosumers, producing and also consuming. We'll still have energy policy consultant right here, Triumph, Ekhosayator, giving us a bit of insight into how this could benefit you. We had a couple of questions, so let's get to this one by the Queen, where she raised concerns about the difference as to how life was when she moved to Abuja in the 90s and right now, referring to a private company at the time that was supporting the national grid, but that contract did not stay long enough. And if this is going to be what is going to be a similar situation playing out right now with this new regulation by NERC. So if you would like to respond to that, as well as, what state governments are doing differently and what they can learn from Abia State.
Okay. So interestingly, so basically this is giving everybody the chance to be a prosumer and giving everybody the chance to support the grid. So basically this is distributed generation, and what it means for all of us in general is that, it's easing the pressure on the grid. There's a grid.
I mean, you have to draw a diagram for me.
Yeah, I have to draw a diagram for him
to break that down.
Yeah, so it becomes a lot more reliable for all of us. And, like I was explaining to you earlier, if everybody gets home at a particular time, they turn on their washing machine in a particular area, you are drawing a lot more electricity. So the great part, and that is pressure on the grid, that's pressure on our main grid. So the great part about distributed generation by all of us as prosumers, for people that take the license, for people that register and, become part of this net billing regulation, it basically gives you the chance to make the grid more reliable as we are all feeding into the grid, people that partake in it. So when you feed into the grid, it makes it, like I said, more reliable, much more balanced for everybody. And so situations where there's now too much pull from the grid, it doesn't really become as catastrophic as, basically now.
So that could put an end to grid collapse in its entirety. I recall that the minister that replaced Minister Delabo made reference to ending grid collapse in the first 100 days, even though he sort of backtracked on how that was interpreted by Nigerians. But let's get to you next and get to hear what you have to say regarding this. Good morning, welcome. Are you there? I hear myself in the background.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jamilu Utako.
Welcome, Jamilu.
I want to use this opportunity to welcome our guest. My question is that as government wants general public and the organized the people that have a hand in the sector to go for renewable energy, most likely solar power energy, what effort is the government doing to bring such a waiver for the materials and the batteries and the installation and all panels to be affordable, easier, cheaper for the people, for them to assist the government? So I want him to clarify that so that they will invite a lot of people to key into the system. Because when you look at the whole system of solar and renewable energy are expensive, are beyond the people reach. So what?
Are you there, Jamilu? I think the connection took you off, but thank you for your thoughts. We'll get to you next. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Itodo.
Welcome. You sound distant from your device. Can you speak up so we hear you clearly?
No. I think this special grid has been collapsing for more than 10 years now. I think that the people in charge of this special grid don't know their work, or we don't have the resources to understand to make this to be standard. And they have been budgeting trillions of naira in this national grid. Up to today, it is not working. But at times they will tell us that they have generated thousands of kilowatts there, and then they don't know how, if we generate thousands of kilowatts of light, how many thousands of kilowatts of light have you been don't understand. We don't understand this concept.
All right. Thank you, Donatus. Let's get to you next.
Yeah, good morning. It's Engineer Bob calling back again after listening to the consultant.
Welcome, sir.
I think they did not do a good job. I would rather promote the REA World Bank project that allows independent power producers to produce and serve communities and receive their pay. They should allow those arrangements to come into the city such that people can produce and distribute it to key areas that want to buy from them. Because it has too much lacunas that will allow the producer or the giver of the light to be at the mercy of the discourse.
All right, Engineer Bob.
Yeah,
all right.
That's it.
Thank you. Let's get to you next. Are you there? Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Welcome, sir. Go ahead.
Itodo.
Yes.
My brother, how you doing, Ambassador?
I'm very well, thank you.
It was a thoughtful policy. However, every policy is subjected to review, because by the time you make the policy and you realize that there are merits and demerits, and by the time you weigh it, the merit is outweighing the merit, and then you can subject to review to reach the present situation. What I am asking our guests is that, one, how are they going to be charging the people that these people are, supplying electric power? Then, how are they going to be paid? Who are they going to be paid? You understand that? So if you pay, as a solar power generator, then you supply the big, power for certain period. How are they going to be charging them? Who are they going to be paid for? Then, based on what you said, that they are going to return to the owners because they are connected to the grid. And any grid that they are using, they also be using it free. So that's my own question. Well done. Thank you so much, my brother.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Various concerns, have played out right there. And this brings us to implementation and infrastructure that would be put in place to ensure that this is as effective as many hope it will be. But a Nigerian discos and electricity infrastructure ready for effective implementation of this net billing? Is that something that we already have in place? Because I know that the argument has always been that Nigeria doesn't have a generation problem. What it has is a distribution problem. So where does this, fall in?
I mean, basically, you've more or less answered the question, because now this is distributed generation, but a much more localized form of it. So we say we have a distribution problem, we're actually moving the electricity around. So when we have a lot of prosumers now tapping into the grid to help supply, areas, again, electricity will really move to where it's needed. So in those kind of situations, you see, we now really, of course, electricity becomes cheaper for the prosumer, but then electricity becomes available for every other person.
Okay. So I'm going to bring you back to what you said earlier, which is the limitations of this particular regulation, even though it is going to be reviewed subsequently to see how more regular people can be a part of it. But that will be a concern. If the average person who has had to produce their own electricity for the longest period, maybe through solar or whatever options that they have, cannot effectively be a part of this immediately it is implemented, then who exactly is going to benefit from it?
I don't think so. First off, there are different levels of electricity consumers. I think the minimum is about, regular household use about, let's say, minimum 2 kilowatt power, and with your, let's say 2.5 battery, which will basically cater for you, solar connected. In those kind of situations, you will not want them because it will be very unreliable to the grid. We don't need more unreliability. So we need to now really push into...
Those who have higher capacity should be the ones who start off.
We are still watching, how this will play. Of course, everybody is... We should be more happy to see the opportunity for how this will play out. We're not the first country to do this, to be honest. In Africa, they're like, South Africa is doing a great job with how they have structured this, so definitely lessons learned from there. But yes, for us in Nigeria, I feel this is a really, really great opportunity for people to actively play within the sector and also,
I'd like to, have you get into some concerns, some challenges. So pricing, compensation, as well as what this would mean for its implementation. But let's go back to Jamila's question, which he asked earlier. And this also, brings us to the challenges, where he referenced what waivers could be made available to these prosumers and those who would want to actively get into it. Because it's possible that with this implementation, there would be a sharp increase in the pricing of renewable energy options.
No, actually.
No?
No. I mean...
You know how things play out in Nigeria?
No. I mean,
no?
as much as, we like to say, yes, things play out like this in Nigeria, I'm sure a lot of us knew how much, a standard solar system would have cost 2 years ago. So that will only get cheaper. Let's face it from that end first.
Okay.
It will only get cheaper. And in a situation where, as a user, you decide, and again, let me just also be very clear that you are getting credit back. You're not getting cash back. This is not a cash rebate.
For those of say counting their money.
Exactly.
No.
This is not a cash rebate situation.
Yeah.
This is for people that would otherwise have excess energy and have nothing to do
So trade by
with it.
barter.
Exactly. So we are giving you the opportunity. This regulation is giving you the opportunity to monetize that excess electricity. Exactly. Because I think one of the users said, there should be an opportunity for independent producers to also set carriers. That's literally what, mini grids do. Do you understand? They go to unserved areas, they find a key, they find an area that needs electricity, and then, they broker a conversation with the distribution and then take advantage of providing, electricity to those people. So yes, it's really just a win-win. Again, for the prosumer, you are reducing your energy costs, like we said.
All right. Let's get to the challenges which you foresee. Cut across the metering, the pricing, the compensation for the excess power supplied to the grid. What challenges do you see, raising its head to prevent this from being an easy process?
So, it's a very, very well thought out regulation. Huge shout out to people that supported NERC on this. I know MRC had like a bit of a hand, and GIZ. And just like you said, one of my very, very initial, thoughts would be about the metering angle of it itself. But then in the regulation, you can see it goes through the right processes. NEMSA certified time of use, and if not, you need to use approved bi-directional meter, so that's covered on that end. So the only, let's say, huge problem will be what a lot of the users have called for, where they want, something more than the credit, that's coming back to them because it's not cash. But really, it's a very well thought out regulation, and of course, I look forward to opportunities where a lot more player can tap into the grid. Okay, something else. I realize that there's no provision for mini grids to take advantage of this because they already have the grid. You understand? But then again, I was like, I had a conversation with one of this Rana Energy that provides for CNI, and where we talked about they had downtimes during the weekend because they have nothing to do. You see, that's an opportunity for them to also register as a prosumer and then get credits from there to offset their own costs.
All right. Let's get back to the phone lines and get a few more concerns. But here is what Seko in Wuye says. For example, some businesses run on 24 hours. During the day, they could use what they produce, sell off the excess into the grid. And at night, when the sunlight is not available, they get to use the grid and net off what was sold into the grid, which is pretty much reiterating what you've shared so far. Let's get to the phone lines. Don't want to move away from your listening device as soon as you connect so we can hear you and have a smooth conversation. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to your guest. My name is Saki.
Welcome, Aki.
When we have beautiful idea like this, it is at the point of implementation we have issues. He has talked about recovery, investment recovery. I don't know whether the consultant is aware that many people that have invested in transformer and network, there's a regulation that when you invest in network, you get it back. Today, I don't think anybody will come out and tell you that they have invested in transformer network and they are getting credit back. So how would this one different? Because it's the same model. So if people have invested in network transformer, they can't get anything for it. Then what would make this one different? So you should tell Nigeria exactly what would be this. Thank you.
All right, Daki, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. How will the average person who has putting their finances or their funding into certain projects be able to get anything out of it is what Akin is calling out for. And the concern that he raises, we've got very interesting policies out there, but the problem always arises during its implementation, and it makes you wonder what feasibility studies were conducted prior to bringing up some of these policies into place, and if indeed it benefits the average person at the end of the day. But something that you should know, that recall in April 2026, NERC issued the Mini Grid Regulations 2026 aimed at improving electricity across Nigeria, and specifically in underserved and unserved communities. And the new regulation at the time provided for a comprehensive framework for the development, operation, oversight of mini grids with a focus on attracting investment and ensuring consumer protection. And the regulation applies to isolated mini grids operating independently of distribution companies up to 5 megawatts, also covering interconnected mini grids linked to existing distribution networks up to 10 megawatts. Some of these things might sound a bit complicated because for the average person, do we have light? Is it steady? Is it affordable? That's what everybody just wants, because we'll see how in the last few years the promises made and what has been obtainable is nothing to write home about. And the Band A, I know that Band A are getting compensation, for poor power supply, something of the sort, from February to March 2026. Yeah. And I'm like, what happens to the other bands as well? Why are they not getting compensation? Because there's a certain amount of hours promised all of these bands. But how many hours of power supply do you get? Listen, Band A is expensive. So if you find a Band A user, maybe you want to hug them and shake their hands. Because
I'm a Band A user.
How much do you spend on the average?
So it's a very interesting thing, right? I would say I stay a bit central in Abuja, and I do get the electricity. But I remember when the regulation came out, and I think the first thing was, are we getting up to this amount that they promised us? And also to really just feed into the last caller that spoke about, the regulations, solely catering, and like, what exactly are they going to be follow throughs with the policies? And the truth is that there's been a lot of work to make sure that the promises they make for you, you can follow through with them. Let me use as an example this conversation we're having regarding the band. If you go and you see you're able to track in a very verifiable way that you don't get that amount of electricity, there is a process you can follow. It's right there on the NERC website. If you Google it, you will see it. It's right there. You can follow it, and AEDC will really bring you down. My building was brought down from Band A to Band B, and then take it back to Band A when they sorted out.
The issue is there's no notice when you're upgraded.
Sorry?
There's no notice when you're upgraded, so you have to.
They did come out with a publication the week before they moved a couple of people to Band A. Yeah.
Do they tell you specifically that you're getting moved from Band A to Band B?
I mean,
or B to A, whichever.
Interesting. If you actually do follow through, you would see that, they put out circulars that say, oh, if you're in this area, you are being moved to Band A. That's how I found out while at work that I had been moved to Band A.
Okay.
So I get home. It's been a week. It's been 2 weeks. I'm paying premium. Luckily, I already had units at the time, so I didn't need to buy the Band A initially. And then we're like, we're not getting enough electricity, right? So we went through that process, and then we were brought down to Band B. Again, it's also just replying the guy that spoke about, spending money on transformers and, not trying to get that money back. There are mechanisms, there are regulations that have been put in place to make sure you actually, are catered for. Because the electricity is for us. We are the users, we are the priorities. So all you need to do is to make sure that you are following the due process. Yes, it's very easy for Nigerians to kick back and say, oh no, we're not sure, or it's a lie. I'm not sure that anybody going to listen to me. But in the regulations, for instance, for this band A, you actually moved up. You go from submitting a letter to moving on to the forums, to moving on to officially now reaching NERC, to show that there's a process of you trying to solve this issue. And yes, they will follow through. I mean, everybody has to follow.
Yes, you say it is.
It is actually.
Okay, let's listen. Let's get to what RoCT584 on YouTube is saying. Nigeria is a copy and paste country. They have copied this one from another country. Implementation will be flawed. Is the thought that the RoCT shares. How does this regulation fit into Nigeria's broader energy transition and objectives?
Net billing is not new. Come on. And in very small ways, we've been, okay, maybe not the billing end of it, but the technology is not new. It has been here for years, and there are countries that have done this for years. And definitely, a lot of work has been done. There has been a bit of, for sure, case studies and research before actually putting this into a regulation. So let's not go into saying it's because of other countries. No, this is something we actually need.
So do you believe that this is going to transform how we produce and consume electricity and make it readily available?
Definitely ties in directly. And also, to answer your question, it also directly ties into our transition goal, our energy transition goal. We've made a lot of promises. Yes, this only really caters for solar, but this means we are now injecting much more renewable energy into the grid, which is incredible to, yes, we are using gas now, but it really ties into our long-term goals and our promises with the Mission 300.
Well, I guess time will unveil itself. But Neme in Asokoro says, for clarity, this well-thought-out policy, which is termed feed-in tariff regulation, now renamed to be net billing scheme policy by NERC, should have been credited to the former President Goodluck Jonathan era, which was approved in April 2015 and gazetted in November 2015 by the late President Buhari's regime, but was never executed. In the policy, it permits buying from 1 to 30 megawatts renewable energy producers. For clarity, feed-in tariff has been as old as Methuselah, is what Nemeth thinks about all of this. All right. And Grammy, is this your name? Oh, Foster and Pape says, I believe this policy from this administration. The president says, don't vote for me if power is not steady. All right. Let's get your final thoughts. We need to wrap things up in 60 seconds, so I'll give you 30.
Okay. So just also speaking, talking about the fact that this is a very good initiative. It's a very good regulation that really helps all of us to now be stakeholders towards our energy landscape, our electricity landscape. It's very good. It makes things cheaper for prosumers, meaning that when they get credits, their cost now becomes a lot more, a lot lesser. Also feeds into our general climate goals. As someone that works that's also part of a civil society, LCN Lagos Climate Network, based of course around Nigeria, it's something we've been advocating for. And definitely it's very good that this is coming up now because, as much as we try to make sure there's electricity for everybody, these also make sure there is more access for everybody.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Triumph Ekhosayator, Energy Policy Consultant. If you can catch up with this on YouTube and Facebook at Nigeria Info Abuja to understand the next net billing regulations. Our conversation in focus. Do stay tuned. So much more coming up for you. Good morning.
Ya ku masu ciniki, albishirinku gasar Maggi Chicken Flavor ya sake dawowa.
This